We call in the tremendous love and the grace of Creator now to boost us with drive, energy, and authority to do your work, to assist in freeing humankind of the violations on us at every level. We have borne great detriment by the dark energies entrapping us at every turn, and we pray with all our heart and soul that we be infused with your wisdom and clarity and ability to speak our truth. For we are at your service, O Lord, and we are humbled by the tasks at hand. Walk with us and stand with us now at our event, that we accomplish important goals of correction to a failed system and in the direction that serves all of humanity, not vile evil's dark agenda to further enslave and harvest us and our precious children. We pray now and at all times. We carry you in our heart, and our spirit is charged with divine right action. We are uniting into an alliance of people, good people, diverse people, hardworking people, responsible people, loving people. And we know that in that unity we will succeed. We are on the right side. We are on the light side. And we are fortified by your ever-present love and grace. And so it is. So I'm going to introduce Mark. He's going to do kind of a set the tone. He's a connecting consciousness friend.
So I do a prayer every morning, asking the Creator, let me know where to go, who to talk to, and what to say. And it's always fun to see where you end up on a Sunday afternoon. So welcome. We come together and join hearts with the love, wisdom, and protection of the one infinite Creator of all that is, in this moment, this week, and forevermore. We come together today from different parts of Oregon and from different parts of these United States. Some of our families are recent arrivals. Some of our families have been here for hundreds of years, and some of our families have been here for thousands of years. We come together with different backgrounds and with different passions and interests. We have different heritages, different philosophies, and different beliefs of every kind. We come together today and forevermore united in our common belief and commitment to the divine sovereignty of every man, woman, and child. We are of one heart and one mind in our absolute devotion and dedication to our God-given and constitutionally guaranteed rights, privileges, and freedoms. With the blessings of these rights and freedoms, we also have great responsibility to preserve and defend these rights, freedoms for ourselves and all others now and into the future. We have no less a responsibility than those who have gone before us, who loved, cherished, and defended this country and the land of Oregon. We are at a pivotal point in history, as we were when this country was founded. Let us not forget that we are powerful creator beings, and when we work together, that creative power is amplified a thousandfold. As we envision our future, we create our future. We will not let our lives and future be created by nefarious groups any longer. Love is always more powerful than evil. When we stand strong, committed in our hearts, evil cannot continue. We have Creator divine authority. We are pure, unlimited potential. Our vision and imaginations and inspired actions create our future. Our imagination is the mind of the Creator, our passion is the heart of the Creator, and our inspired actions are the hand of the Creator. We are unstoppable. Focus not completely on the crimes committed against us, but on our brilliant future we are creating together. We are powerful, infinite Creator beings. We were created to extend peace, love, happiness, joy, laughter, and sovereignty and freedom. And so we are. We claim that vision and reality for ourselves, our family, and the state, and our nation. We are creating peace, our sovereignty and freedom with our vision for the future. With our imagination and visions and inspired actions, we are creating health, happiness, balance, and harmony for all of humanity and for the land, water, and air in, on, and above Mother Earth. With our visions for the future, we are creating health, happiness, and prosperity for all. We are creating joy, celebration of an enlightened world. With fearless faith, we envision, imagine, and create, side by side, hand in hand with the one infinite creator of all that is. Again, we create our future. We do not comply to tyranny, and we do not acquiesce our sovereignty. We stand strong in what the Creator has given us and what the Constitution and Bill of Rights have guaranteed us. We are unstoppable together. We create our future as God intended. So be it. Thank you, Creator of all that is. God bless Oregon and these United States. Thank you.
Patrick Wood, who's based in Mesa, Arizona. He's been following the technocrats who now run our society. Technocrats are people who have no compassion, no feeling. They've been termed as psychopaths, and that's how they're taking over our society so easily and so efficiently. Patrick Wood started this group up, and it's now all over the States with tens of thousands of members, and we have a meetup by Zoom every other Wednesday. And but despite all his efforts, the free speech has been disappearing from our society, as you will know. That's in the First Amendment. It was put as the First Amendment because it is the most important. Without free speech, without free thinking, which is not possible under the communist regimes, without a free press, without a free religion, then there is no free society. And the Second Amendment is the right to guns. And that was put there intentionally because it's only a society that owns guns that can actually defend and protect the First Amendment. Oh, sorry, I didn't know you were all listening as well. So the First Amendment is the most important. Free speech, free religion, free press, access to your legislators. And the Second Amendment is hugely important because that was put as number 2, as I've just said, to protect the First Amendment. So the First Amendment is really, really important. We meet up, as I've said, by Zoom every second and fourth Wednesday of the month, and the membership is growing exponentially. The other thing that really concerns me is the assassination on our children at the moment. I mean, this is hugely worrying, and I think it doesn't take place nearly to the degree that it is taking place in the States. I don't think this happens quite so much in the rest of Europe. And I just heard a speech given by some of the members of the European Parliament. I just listened to it last night. And the European Parliament is now doing a U-turn, and more and more of the MEPs, that's members of the European Parliament, are stepping up and talking about the criminality of the vaccines. So it's our children, which seem to be particularly targeted in the United States, that are really at high risk. So many children are, I don't know if they're dying, but they're certainly being dreadfully affected. I've seen one girl of 13 in a wheelchair. She's almost a paraplegic. So these are the things we have to fight for, and I think the only thing we can fight, the only way we can fight effectively is to join organizations, and then actually for these organizations like us, Charlie's and CFFS, is to join together so that we can then have some huge demonstrations, as they have been having in the UK. I don't know if you've seen the latest demonstration in London, but there were tens of thousands of people. They were very, very vociferous and emphatic about what they stand for. So it is happening in other countries, but we haven't seen it happening very much in here, except perhaps in New York, where the health workers have been coming out. the injuries from the vaccinations, all this sort of thing was supposed to be taken care of in the Nuremberg Code, which was established in 1948, and it is a code that's honoured, has been honoured up to today by all the nations of the world. But today, the Nuremberg Code doesn't seem to have any place in any parliament's principles, seems to have gone. And those doctors and scientists in Germany at that time were given relatively light sentences. And then, I don't know if you've researched it all, they came over to America under Operation Paperclip, and they were given jobs in the pharmaceutical industry. So that indicates to anybody who's awake that the pharmaceutical industry has been run by Nazis ever since the 1950s. And this, what we're seeing now, is the dream of those Nazis coming true. This is exactly what they wanted. And I think they've got even more than they planned for, because now we're going in for population control to a huge degree. I think Bill Gates, his aim was to have it down to 95% of the current population. So there's only going to be 5 to 10% of us human beings left. What we're supplemented with is AI human beings. I don't know how many of them there'll be around. So I think Charlie does wonderful work, her organisation does fantastic work. I think my organisation, CFFS, I've got some literature over there, does wonderful work as well. So thank you everybody, and it's wonderful of you to turn up, and I think Charlie's agitating a bit and wants me to close off. So I'm very happy to do that.
Out in the physical. We can continue to Zoom. I have weekly Zooms, or try to, with my classmates, and I'll get a little bit into who I am and what I do at NUNM and what's going on there, because that's kind of my little microcosm of an ecosystem of what's going on. And we all have that. Be it we have to quit our jobs, or our students, we have to pull them from public schools. We're all fighting that individual fight on a small scale, but that funnels into why we are all here today. And as you can already tell, we have folks in politics, we have folks in sort of the legal avenue, we have folks in medicine as well, like myself, and all of these are coming together. What's going on right now with COVID is the wheelhouse of all of us, and especially those in medicine, because it's dealing with a so-called virus, we'll say. But with that, I just wanted to say thank you all for showing up. And if you didn't know, a little while ago, we actually had an eagle fly over, and I just went to use the restroom over at the public restroom here, and I ran into one of my teachers from school that's retired and kind of left for all the craziness going on. And he said, what are you doing here? Are you passing through for traveling? I said, no, I'm speaking at the rest stop. And it kind of looked like, okay, so I'm not sure if he saw what's going on over here, but maybe he thinks I'm over here speaking to myself and amongst the trees. But we do have a nice group here. Before I kind of share with you what's going on at NUNM, I want to share a quote from Alexander Solzhenitsyn. And if folks aren't familiar with who that is, that's the author of the Gulag Archipelago. He's wonderful book. I really suggest reading it, because we know about communism in China and we know about Soviet Russia and all that, but the plan in place of what's going on right now is remarkably similar to the Bolshevik Revolution and what they did to the kulaks and everything in Russia. And a lot of that was sort of class warfare and putting people against each other, manufacturing these, what we might call nowadays as sort of psyops, or this idea that there's so much division, and really it's manufactured. But I want to share this quote with you, and this again is a big thankfulness to why everyone is here today. And that's: the simple step of a courageous individual is not to take part in the lie. One word of truth outweighs the whole world, and that is what he found being a Gulag prisoner and going through just that horrendous time in history during Soviet Russia. But anyways, I'm a student at NUNM. I'm from Kentucky, if you hear the accent pop through. I came out here for school, specifically for school. When I was a young man, I knew this is what I wanted to do. From a very young age, I was involved in Chinese martial arts, and that had a lot to do with mind, body, spirit. And I knew as well, sort of innately in my heart, that there was something deeply wrong with the way medicine was practiced. And that was my entryway into what is going on, and that is the deep deception that we are all very well aware of now. Because if one positive came out of COVID, it's that it's waking some people up, right? Hopefully there's far more than we think, and I think that's a divisionary tactic as well. They do that to me at my school. They do that to us. You know, you're the only one unvaccinated. You're the only one this and that. But, you know, I think this is a small sample size of how many there are that are awake to what's going on. But at NUNM, National University of Natural Medicine, and that's important because we think natural medicine, oh my goodness, what our savior and what's going on right now, and that truly is the case. We find that pharma continues to fail and continues to bring harm to us, and now they're going after the kids. But at my school of natural medicine, which sort of supports itself as the top natural medicine school, one of the oldest in the U.S., right? Naturopathic medicine, Chinese medicine, all of these. They mandate the vaccine. The only way out of it there is religious or medical exemption. And they're giving the vaccine out in the clinic, and they're not speaking up. They're not speaking up because they say their hands are tied by the government. Indeed, that is the case in many of these institutions, and that's why I love what the group here is doing and what others are doing, is we have to build things outside of the system, because that system is broken, the one that we're in right now. But at my school, I applied for religious exemption, went through fine, right? That's great. But now they sort of subject us as a second-class citizen in a discriminatory way of the vax versus unvax. Again, what's the theme here? Going back to what I started with Solzhenitsyn, and that's this division tactic. So do not fall into that trap. We're all here today from different walks of life, and that's just what's so amazing about these every time I come to events. But anyways, we have to have weekly testing. We know how, I'm not going to get into the nonsense of the testing. We know how much nonsense the PCR test is and all the rapid antigen. So I said, what can I do? Because I've been sort of burdened and chained by fear as well for speaking out in my school. You know, I would call myself a good student. I want to get in and help people. I want to get out. But I said, what can I start to do? Because this is so important to me, because this is the greatest deception perhaps we've ever seen. And so I said, well, they want me to test every week. I cannot say yes to that test, because you have to somewhere draw a line. And I know for many the vaccine's a line, but for me it's the principle on which this is based upon, and that is a deep lie, and I cannot continue to do that. So I said, well, let me just deny testing for this week. So I decided not to do the testing, because I will not put the nasal swab in my nose for other reasons. Some of you are aware of why that is as well, but just on principle. And so the next day I get an email, you're suspended for a week for not testing. Okay, I knew that could happen, but it wasn't a suspension, it was, you just can't come to school. Now that makes sense, right? Because they're trying to keep everyone quote unquote safe, because, well, you're unvaxxed. We don't know if you have COVID, and that's a whole nother story. There's so many rabbit holes here, right? But instead, what they decided to do was make a point out of me. They decided, and classmates as well, and even teachers who decided not to test or couldn't test because of the very difficult parameters that were placed upon us. Again, discrimination. But what it was they emailed all my teachers and they said, if you have Tommy Hughes show up to a class, you must deny him access to the class. Not just in person, but Zoom classes as well. Now, does that make any sense with COVID? That's obviously a disciplinary act. And so what we find is, even within what we hope to be the last place of hope, a natural medicine school, what we found is that they too are now in the grips of this darkness. And I'm going to call it for what it is. It is indeed this darkness. It is a entity or entities or force behind all of us that, I think most of us here today are aware of, or at least keen to. That this isn't just politics anymore. This is obviously not about health. But I wanted to share with you my personal sort of microcosm as it is at that school, and just how difficult it is for all of us, be in school or a position. We have lots of people like in New York just saying no, and that's how they're saying no, is they're stopping, they're quitting their jobs. But with what I share with what's going on at my school, I want to somehow bring it back to what we can all do, because most would say my school's one of a lost cause. I still have hope. I still have hope for the medicine. I think that's the way out of this. I think this is the way out of the legal, political, just disgusting hold that has been upon us that most of us are not even aware of until we start to study it. And I think the medicine is the way out as well. And that brings me into what can we do, even if you're not an NUNM student, and that is what a lot of what's going on here is an assault on the individual. And so what do you need to do? You need to strengthen your individuality. And that might be through aspects of health, that might be through prayer, that might be through what we had today. That was just absolutely wonderful. And what you find is, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but what you find is groups like this, when we come out and get together, oftentimes we're labeled violent, or they try and wedge us into some far right or conspiracy or this or that, you know, and that's their game, that's their tactic. But when you come out physically, like we are today, and you meet up with everyone, you realize how many beautiful souls there really are. And you know, I try and share that message with my folks at school to, you know, because school is difficult. You know, in a medical program, that's a lot of hours, that's a lot of work. But how important it is right now that we come out and meet like this, and we strengthen together what the cause is here, and we don't let this just, oh, you know what, it'll be okay. Oh, you know what, this will all blow over soon. Oh, come December, we'll reach herd immunity or this or that or the other. But we know that they just keep moving the goalpost. So, never voice a negative without a solution. That's Kathy O'Brien. That's the MK Ultra survivor. And I love that quote, because a lot of times what happens is, and I'm guilty of this too, we kind of nag and talk about, oh, this is crazy, they're going after the kids, I'm getting angry. So how can we start to use that emotion in a healthy way? And this is kind of where I come in with my background in holistic health and medicine my whole life, with perhaps my parting gift in a way, my humble gift that might be helpful to us, and that is how to use those emotions of anger, of fear, all of that that's going through all of us right now. How can we utilize that? Because I'm not a guy that's about, you know, monk mode here and drive those emotions deep down, that emotions are silly and they don't matter, because they do. They're there for a reason. So how can we start to use this anger that we have against the system? Well, we're doing that today. We're coming out and we're transmuting that anger, where it comes from, to push us farther along in our goal and our mission. And that is toward freedom and liberty of the individual, and to protect the sovereignty of the individual. And that's where, on the medical side as well, is so important, because holistic medicine, natural medicine, which indeed is the way of the future, this ancestral wisdom, is focused on the sovereignty of the individual, even more so than allopathic medicine. That would be your modern medicine that you're used to. We focus so much on the sovereignty of the individual, be it just through touch or through ensuring that we're not causing any type of uninformed harm. That is obviously what is going on right now as well. So that's sort of the dichotomy there, the difference. And so in closing here, I just want to hopefully in some form or fashion continue to inspire myself as well, getting up here and speaking, and inspire you as well to, even if it's just talking to family or friends in a very compassionate, neutral, heart-based way of what's going on. Obviously, you're not going to get through to everyone. There's a lot of programming and conditioning going on here. But in summary, if we continue to come out like this, like like Ms. Morel spoke of this morning, like the UK, what's going on in Europe, why isn't that here? Well, there's many reasons for that, but if we can start to focus on the importance of coming out to functions like this, and even if you don't agree or your views are a little bit different, find where we can unify, and that is what we're doing today, and that is a unification around bringing to light the darkness that is going on in this world, and that's just truly wonderful, and it's just amazing that all of us can come together on this. So I thank you all so much for the time to listen. We'll keep fighting for those who aren't awake. Let's keep doing that, right? Instead of saying, hey, wake the hell up, we can say, you know what, I'm going to keep fighting for you until you do wake up. So thank you all so very much. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Tommy. You're so well spoken. We appreciate you.
Here, pass out. My sign says Brown, Bonamici, Wyden, and Merkley are not in office officially. And to support that statement, I had this photocopy, this document that said that we have tried them and found them unworthy of their offices. And so I photocopy this and I carry this everywhere I go. And you can find it on where? orsja.org. Okay? So I encourage you to photocopy these and carry them with you when you go in the stores. People are going to get in your face about the mask again and again. And they're doing it now with the mandates for the vax. I mean, I can't even go eat at a 4-star restaurant anymore without being asked where my vax card is, which is just a bunch of bullshit, if you ask me. All right, so the meek shall inherit the earth. We are the meek, I hate to tell it. But we are ferocious now, and we are in World War III. This is a silent war, kiddos. All right? This is not something that... this is a chemical warfare here, and this is the biggest genocidal eugenics... Huh? Okay. This is the biggest eugenics genocidal effort against mankind ever. You ought to be a little pissed. Okay. Those fighting this war, and I think we are those warriors right now, but we need many more. I think we're the 144 mentioned in the Bible. I really do. I'm not kidding. You can be that warrior and join the crew. So, these viruses, I hate to tell you, but they're all patented. All right? Thank you very much over there. What's your name, Sonny? Renee. Okay, thank you, Renee. These are, and a lot of them are U.S. patented, okay? And swine flu, bird flu, and now here we are with COVID, all U.S. patented. Well, that should get you scratching your head a little bit. I mean, think about it. So then the patent gets sold to someone, high bidder, maybe pharma would do a thing like that and tweak it a little bit, and then they say in the fine print, oh, by the way, this is no guarantee that it will protect you from the virus that it's intended for. And maybe even in smaller print it'll say, you could die from this. All right, so we're hearing that plenty now. People are dying from this, dropping like flies, sometimes within hours. Minutes, right? Minutes. All right, so pass that on. Now, Gates and Fauci are in this as deep as it could get, right? Gates, this is his third time around. He had AIDS, then the swine flu, or the bird flu, sorry, and now he's got COVID. And remember, Gates' father was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't his father in Planned Parenthood? Was he the CEO of it, or he started it, founder? Was he the founder? Okay, thank you, good, that's even better. And he said to Billy, hey, Billy, you know, you got an important job to do. You have to control the population. That's part of the Planned Parenthood agenda, is to reduce the population. So Billy bought into that, all well-intended, I'm sure. And then he probably was the guy behind the Georgia Guidestones. Ever heard of the Georgia Guidestones? Yeah. Okay, it's a monolith. It's got their Bible, or their 10 commandments on it in 10 different languages, 2 of which are obsolete languages. One is Egyptian hieroglyphics, and the other is Babylonian or Sumerian cuneiform, right? What the hell? We're in a war with people who think their bloodlines are special, all right? And this goes all the way back. This is the Nephilim here. These are the fallen angels, basically, that are deluded through the females, right, on Earth here, and they found our females favorable, I guess. Fair, right, desirable, fair. And then you got these hybrids. So we're those hybrids now, and hybrids of the hybrids. So we're even lower on the scale. All right, so this is, it's an egotistical war of bloodlines and superiority. And then, of course, the elites are at the top of this list. So our enemy, it has to be explained to you who our enemy really is. And it's a lot of people here. Anyone who promotes the Marxist divisionist strategies, and BLM is one of those strategies, right? You get people shooting each other because, hey, don't all lives matter? All right, so apparently they don't. We've singled out a group of people here to get people angry about something. And the social media out there also does this. The Illuminati, the banks, the elite clubs, the Shriners, the Freemasons, the Skull and Crossbones, pharma, the health industry, the food industry, entire entertainment industry. Ever heard of Operation Mockingbird? Yep. Okay, good.
Committee 300.
Anybody who don't know, right? Mockingbird it's for all media, movies, entertainment industry, singing, the acting, everything, news. Everything is designed to indoctrinate you into this phony belief system that you are less than they are, and you have to trust what they tell you all this nonsense. So these people are your enemies. The transportation industry, they've been hoarding, they've been keeping the gas thing a secret all along, or the free energy secret, so that they could entertain their antediluvian source of energy. And this has got to stop. The education industry, that CCP is everywhere in our education. It's just completely contaminated. I learned more in prep school than I did in college. My parents wasted a lot of money on college. I was teaching the art teachers art myself. I was going, why am I here? Why am I spending my precious life in college? Thank God I didn't pay for it. I thank my parents for it. What a waste of money it was, I gotta say. Don't waste your money in the education industry anymore unless you're trying to become a specialist, really. And that parchment, I didn't show it to anyone. It was worthless. I had a business minor too. The only thing I remember about my business minor was the supply and demand curve. That was it. All right, Davos, the billionaires, they're our enemies. The Zionists, anybody opposed to Trump. That's the enemy, people. Don't trust them. Don't listen to the media. Find the journalists out there who are doing real work and find the truth. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Sean Edlund, and I'm out of Tigard, Oregon, originally from Seattle. If you only hear that I'm a follower of King Jesus, you will miss what I'm about to say. I am about to speak to you as you are a human that is created to live and thrive and prosper and succeed. Just follow me for a few seconds. This is what the Lord showed me in August. He said God did not step out of heaven to do away with Goliath. Instead, he rose up the fire and passion of God in a man, a little man. But one voice makes a difference. Your voice makes a difference. Your voice makes a difference. It says, let us create man in our image. It says in Romans chapter 5, it says, for the disobedience of one, sin entered in the world. However, for the obedience of one, righteousness entered in through the world. If one doesn't make a difference, then why is human time frame centered around 1 AD or BC AD? It makes the one makes a difference. Your voice makes a difference. In 1996, I read a quote by Harriet Tubman. It says, she said, I have seen their tears and I have heard their cries, and I would still give every drop of blood in my veins to free them. What the fire that God has placed inside of this brother is going to look different than the fire God has placed inside of this brother. The fire in this sister is going to look different than the fire in this brother. But if I sit there and judge the fire in this brother, then I'm not going to take the strength inside of this brother. And if I say, but her strength or his strength isn't like my strength because I follow King Jesus, then I'm going to discredit the DNA inside of another. We cannot do that. And so I stand here as a follower of King Jesus, and I say, oh Lord, have mercy what the body of Christ has done. We have said Satan is the prince of the power of the air, and we have allowed the world to take over instead of allowing our warrior instinct, all of us have it. But then one day, somebody grew up and said, oh, no, Johnny, you cannot operate like that. And you believed him. Or somebody said, oh, no, you can't think like that. The way you think is wrong. And you believed him. So the only person we have absolute control over is our own human mind. And if I allow myself to be snuffed out, then the finger comes right here back to me. Shame on me. And so does it on all of us. We have got to make a decision as humans created in the image of God to stand up and quit being a bunch of pansies. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? So I would just encourage everybody. It says dreams and visions are from God. So if there's a verse in the Bible and it says in Jeremiah, were they to ask me to no longer speak in his name, indeed I cannot. His word is like a fire shut up in my bones. I'm weary of holding it in. Indeed I cannot. So I don't care what the naysayers you've heard come into your little atmosphere of your brain. Shake it off. Pick yourself up. Nobody can do that. You are the only one that's going to look yourself in the mirror. And either you will be disappointed in yourself because you did not take a stand, or you will take a stand and you will say, I have done everything that I could do. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Ron just mentioned Mike Brooks, who is here. Cynthia and I and Mark went down to Eugene. We went down Tuesday to put documents into the Federal District Court of Oregon in Eugene. And we put a claim of cognizance for Oregonians, which we have already sent to the Secretary of State on Oregon. And so we made copies of that, and we also wrote a claim of cognizance for Mike Brooks, who is the individual that we're referring to, who has been violated by the state, not to mention his family, for a very long time, years. So he's here. We're going to talk briefly about that, and then we'd like Mike to share some of his story. So when we went to Eugene, the three of us were on Tuesday, we filed those documents into the court, and then we went to the hearing the next morning, and we sat in the back, and we were ready to do our amicus curiae briefs. We each wrote a different part out of the claim of cognizance that claimed no jurisdiction over this human being, the flesh and blood man, and that the court had no jurisdiction. Mark took territorial jurisdiction because the courthouse is a federal courthouse. It's not on federal land. That is not constitutional. That's number one. Number two, I took the oath. They oath to the wrong constitution. They do not uphold their oaths. They violate our rights, and yet they take the oath. Cynthia took the de jure versus the de facto jurisdiction. So between the three of us, ready to stand and give our amicus brief, we were told in the very beginning we would not be heard. So we immediately went down after the court was mysteriously ending. Chris came out with my coat and my tablet and my pen and my purse, and I looked at her, and first I didn't see her in the back. I didn't even know she was there, and I said, what is this? And she said, it's over. They locked us out. And I said, what? And she said, yeah. I said, oh, okay. Well, it turns out they dismissed the case. So we went down immediately to the court clerk, and we filed in again each of our briefs. So we had a coup experience there.
Yeah.
So
that case was not dismissed.
Well, the courtroom, the hearing was dismissed. Thank you.
That was it.
Yeah, thank you.
There's still...
This is what Cynthia's brief was.
So we actually had determined an order that we were going to go in to give these briefs. And we prayed first with Mike before we went in, and that he would not be arrested, and that he would be able to leave. And we were given a 2-minute break from the judge. And so we went out, and I called the assembly, and we spoke to them very briefly in the women's bathroom. And then it went at 8 minutes. It's like, I gotta go, and we came out, and all of our stuff was gone. I do not know when they dismissed that court, because when I walked out of that courtroom, we were on a 10-minute break. So I'm going to read what I wrote, because I didn't get to see it, you guys, and I think that it needs to be spoken out. So, I am known as Cynthia Palmetier, Deputy Clerk of the Civilian Court of Record for the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly, General Delivery, Beaverton, Oregon. I rise as amicus curiae, a friend of the court and an interested third party. I make my claim of cognizance as Deputy Clerk for the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly, a Civilian Court of Record. My statement to the court: I am a friend of the court. I am passionate for Oregon, my country, and the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Today, in our courts, our Pledge of Allegiance has little value for the people. Our government and courts are in color of law, a de facto state of affairs, being true in fact or legality, but not officially sanctioned by the United States Constitution, pre-March 1861. My demand of the court, file proof of your jurisdiction over the man, Mike Brooks, who is flesh and blood, mind and spirit, a member of the de jure Oregonian jurisdiction. Provide evidence this is a constitutional Article 3 court, thereby establishing jurisdiction over a living mind, body, soul, flesh and blood man, so named Michael Brooks. This communique is not intended to mislead, defraud, deceive, nor threaten in any way, and is submitted in good faith and with clean hands. I do lawful, not legal. I do de jure, not de facto color of law. This is my best effort as a true friend of God and of the court.
I went and wrote the report, and what it was is they wanted to know the total medical costs, the claims costs, for all of their employees, going back to when they were covered initially by, it was actually, they called themselves Agate Healthcare, but they weren't. I mean, Agate Healthcare was the holding company, but never have a license to handle insurance or sell insurance products. It was actually handled by a shell corporation that they had chartered initially under the Lane Individual Practice Association, which also is called the Lane Independent Physicians Association. It actually has like 3 different names. It's an acronym, LIPA. And so they had basically gotten a license from the state of Oregon to sell for, I believe it was $5,000 or $6,000. I actually have it all written down. Dollars a piece to certain physicians to be able to handle Medicaid, Medicare customers for the Oregon Healthcare Program that John Kitzhaber had just set up. And so Agate was doing this, and what they were doing is they were collecting all these records on employees for the Monaco Coach Corporation, and all of their children and their spouses. They were collecting all of those records, and they were coming up with what the sum total cost for claims was going to be for the prior year, and they sold it to Monaco. Monaco, I asked the nurse, and she told me, was using that information to lay people off. And I went, well, this is outrageous. So I called the Oregon Attorney General's office. At that time, it was Hardy Myers, I believe. I didn't know the guy's name. And I called in, and I ended up talking with after a couple of calls, actually. Finally, they passed me off to an attorney who said, no, that's all legal in Oregon. That Monaco is self-insured. And I went, no, they're not self-insured. They bought a policy from Agate Resource. And he said, no, they're actually self-insured, and Agate's merely the planned third-party administrator. And so I called CMS, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services in Washington, D.C., who said, no, they can't. No third-party administrator can sell those records because that's a HIPAA violation. And I went, what? Well, they're using them for layoffs. And they went, we want you to collect those records. So I collected those records for their investigator. And they went, if you see anything else like that, we want you to tell us about it. So I did. At Seneca Sawmill, they had a whole bunch of big, huge employers that are still doing it today in Oregon. I then kept digging, and I found out that Agate had set up, and they, mind you, this is a company with no license to sell insurance, no legal ability to handle healthcare records. They were operating in 34 states across the United States. This is back in 2006. And what they were doing is selling records for employees in all of them. And I kept digging, and I found out that they were also selling records for other patients that were, how do I put this? They were basically secret records for HIV tests, STDs, for foster kids that they were not legally entitled to have or even see. And I saw those records, and I kept copies of them and sent them to CMS. Did this all the way to 2007. As of 2007, for some reason or other, they kind of went and stopped granting me permission to collect more records. So what I did is I kept collecting them, and I hid them on a server, actually 3 different servers at Agate. They had a server farm with around 40 or 50 servers. when I was in 2012, if you kind of fast forward, in late 2011, I got a hold of the ability, because they needed me to set up a new claims reporting system it was developed by United Healthcare. It was called Impact Intelligence and Impact Analysis. And I ended up setting up a database server for all of this stuff. And they were collecting records from across the United States. If you go look, you'll find out there's all kinds of lawsuits associated with this thing back then. And the chief medical officer was a fly tyer, and I was running fly tying classes in my home one night a week. And he would come over, and we actually, in front of 8 witnesses who were school teachers, talked about the agates selling those records, collecting and selling them for money. They've been doing this for years. Trillium is a shell company. Agate, I found out, is a shell company. Agate doesn't really have any employees. All the employees of Agate are actually employees of the Centene Corporation, which operates across the United States and in 9 foreign countries, including Serbia, Australia, New Zealand, Germany, Austria. I mean, it's all over the place. And it's really hard to find because they had, from what I've been able to track down, more than 900 shell companies, all of them aliases. In other words, Ambetter, HealthNet, Trillium, they are everywhere. Worse than that, I'm going to assume that some of you are public employees that are here. If you're a public employee, they are your benefits manager. That means when your doctor writes a charge for a referral or they want to send you off for a test, okay? It's called an authorization. The people that approve that are Centene, and they operate under other shells. They've operated as Evercare, Evercore, dozens of names. So if they wanted to, and they do quite often, how they save money in Oregon is they disapprove those authorizations. In the case of public employees, they are also collecting your records because in order to get the authorization, they got the chart notes and everything. All of those records on all of you are there, and they're all being sold. What this court hearing was about, that these people bravely showed up and kept me from getting tossed in jail was over, was a court order by the court to surrender those records to Stroh Reeves, who's the attorney for Centene, Agate, Trillium, and the state of Oregon. And what really frosts me about it is that the case that they're handling this under was closed 3.5 years ago. And an interesting thing about this is the judge states in the case that with regards to a protective order he wrote last January. So he wrote a protective order that he's enforcing for a case that is 3.5 years closed, doesn't exist. I tried to get this thing appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. They won't hear it for the very simple, and neither will the Ninth Circuit or anybody else, because it's closed. It doesn't exist. You have a fake hearing by a judge who, and get this, is engaged in a fishing expedition. If you listen to the Stroh Reeves attorney, and by the way, the transcript of that is going to be out here probably within the next week, and you need to read it. It's going to be short, a couple pages long. The Stroh Reeves attorney talks about the fact that they suspected that I had more information than I had. And I went, what? I had turned over everything I had back in January. But you have to step back from that too. In 2015, excuse me, Judge Ann Aiken appointed an attorney to represent the court in this hearing. That attorney hired a law firm with 2 attorneys, and they in turn, all 3 of them, hired another lawyer named Mary Ann Dugan. And what she ended up doing is on September 10th of 2017, she went into Lyman & Johnson's law offices and took 3 baker's boxes full of documents, at least 40 thumb drives, and at least 20 DVDs with at least 64 gigabytes, that's 500,000 pages of records that I had collected, had made copies of it, but had collected for HHS. I was being charged with, quote, theft of documents for proving that Agate was selling your records and the records for people in this state. And here's where it gets bad. If you look at foster children, just in foster kids in the state of Oregon, most of you, when you go and you get a referral, the doctor pretty much always gets it approved, and you go off and you get the test done, an MRI or an X-ray. For foster kids, like foster kids, only 26% of referrals were approved. For black foster children, this is in Oregon, 13% of referrals were approved. For Native American children, 10%. And for Hispanic kids, these are legal U.S. citizen Hispanics, 6%. In other words, 94% of the time, the doctor's referrals were denied. It gets worse when you look at women and prenatal care. Prenatal care for women, for Native American women, a third of them ended up having their babies in ERs, in emergency rooms, because there was no prenatal care. And there's a reason for that, and I'll get to that in just a minute. Of that, a third of those women, or actually it was 26% of those women, 26.7% of those women in the state of Oregon, they sent them home within 4 hours of a cesarean section. So you got women with major surgery that were returning within 24 hours, half of them, with dead babies, distressed babies, and then cells hemorrhaging. This is Oregon. The judge was hammering me, and what really gets me about all of this is that the documents that were stolen out of Lyman and Johnson's office were transported to Stroh Reed's in Portland. They had 2 different attorneys that quit over this. Lord only knows what happened to all those documents, and it gets much worse than that. A bunch of them went to the state of Oregon. Now, their initial, what they're hitting me up with is that if I turn these over to any federal court, and I did, I sent copies of this stuff to the U.S. Supreme Court, I'm in contempt of court. They own them, the state of Oregon does. If they're out to any federal agency, if they're turned over, because I filed it right there, they heard it. I said I'd like permission, and make a motion for permission to turn these records over to the United States Congress. Motion denied. You can't show them to Congress, can't show them to another court, can't show them to any federal agency, the SEC, HHS, or anybody else. We're in violation, Oregon is in violation of HIPAA, they're in violation of actually the Geneva Accords, because the sale of some of these records, for instance, a Russian student went to bed because he was homesick. He went to counseling, and it sounds funny, this woman over here is laughing about it. The kid was horrified. He's this 18-year-old kid away from home for the first time, and he had a nightmare over the whole thing. So he went to this college for counseling. His notes ended up in Agate's hands, and they sold them. They were selling records of Swedish girls with STDs. They sold records of kids, of Arabic girls and Australian girls, why I don't know, who had abortions. All those records, all this stuff is floating around this thing. There was a Chinese girl who was raped at a university, college, a public university in the state of Oregon. And she ended up involuntarily committed to the psychiatric hospital in Salem. They were selling her records. And they didn't tell her government about it as the legally required thing to do. And I got in trouble for that in an illegal hearing by a judge way out of line. The people who, these records that have been floating around since then, are not from me. They were stolen from me in 2017. There are records that are popping around this state that I think come from either the state of Oregon, because Stroh Reed's violated their restraining order and gave them to the state of Oregon. And there are a couple of people in the state of Oregon who've contacted me who are really upset about this. Or they were sold by 2 Stroh Reed's attorneys who quit over this. I'm done.
What I'd like to talk to you about today is when we're reaching out to all of the people that we're dealing with, there's always groups that are separated into their small niche, and they're very interested in their small niche, and their small niche is huge. If the small niche is family court and they're into it, trying to save their kids or whatever is going on, that's huge to them, and it is, but it's very small, and it separates them from the guy over here that got arrested for carrying a gun. And how in the hell did he get arrested for carrying a gun? But he did. So he's over here fighting that battle. And the other fella's over here fighting the battle about driver's license. and licensing his car when he's not a commercial business. Then there's the folks from yes, mental block, I'm sorry, connecting consciousness. They ring a bell with me, and what we're doing seems to ring a bell with them also. And what we're trying to do is bring everybody into the realization that none of these issues we have with family courts or probation courts or probate or income tax or driver's license or whatever it happens to be, not one of those things is the problem. That's an issue. The problem is we do not have a constitutional Republican form of government. And if we're spending our time, good time, fighting all of these issues, which is what you should do, and continue to fight them until you win, but you got to shave off a little bit of time from your schedule to figure out a way to, how do we return to a constitutional Republican form of government? And we think we found the way, and it's just in reading the documents. The guys that wrote the original documents a really long time ago, our founding fathers, were not nice guys. People think they're our founding fathers and they were heroes, and no, they weren't. They were not. They were not going to take it anymore. They had decided that they wanted to be free men, and they were like 3% of the population. 90% or so of the population said, it's all right being the subject of the king. Let's just cool it. We'll be subjects of the king. It's been that way forever. We don't have to be free. And you have to kind of understand that these guys stole 13 colonies from the strongest monarch in the world. They took them by force. They're not nice guys. They're not sweethearts. You know, when you read about the guys that signed the Declaration of Independence, I'm such a candy ass. These guys that signed the Declaration of Independence, they hung them and killed them. When you read the number of guys that signed the Declaration of Independence and how many of them lived to sign the Constitution or to act in the Continental Congress under the Articles of Confederation, not many lasted. This is not a lightweight game we're into. They're killing us. And people are standing by watching it. They don't inform themselves, and they line up in the street to get a shot that we can prove kills them. And they're happy to. And I can't blame them. I was with them until 2014. I was right there. What, you know, are you a U.S. citizen? Damn straight, man. And I didn't even understand. I thought I did, but I didn't. And when you look at the words that we're dealing with, we had one just the other day. What the hell was it? Yeah, Charlie was there. Where's Charlie? Theater. Theater is spelled two different ways. Color is spelled two different ways. And the argument I was having was with a very knowledgeable lady, defense, D-E-F-E-N-C-E, D-E-F-E-N-S-E. And you can't hang your hat on that, but she does, because defense spelled one way is the French way, and defense spelled the other way is the English way, and they were both acceptable until like 1800. They didn't even codify how we spell stuff until then. The people that wrote the document that we're trying to return to, they knew what the hell they were doing. They knew how to punctuate stuff. They knew when to capitalize things. They could speak Greek and read and write it. They could speak Latin and read and write it. They were knowledgeable men. I said this the other day. They figured out in algebra and geometry how to do quantum equations in 1500. Now, do you think those guys knew how to write a sentence, for Christ's sake? They did. They knew what they were doing when they wrote it. And we don't need anybody to interpret it for us. You read it. If you don't understand it, you discuss it with somebody else. But the words are all there. And if you can't support the word that you're reading with a documented proof, then it's not real. If you can't come up with the document, you don't have reality. Joe was talking recently about finding the documents. Ray, Roger, and a guy named Al went to the Secretary of State's office in Salem several years ago, and we were there with an appointment at the archives to see the Oregon statehood documents. Statehood documents are the contract that the people on Oregon sent to Washington, D.C. and said, this is what we think. And Congress in Washington, D.C. accepted our documents and certified them and ratified them and made Oregon the 33rd state. And they sent our copy of the contract back to Oregon. And they kept a copy of a contract. And the contract is the United States of America's Constitution. It's not the Constitution for or the Constitution of. It is the United States of America. That's our name. Anything else is false. When you see the United States of America with a small t on the TH, that's not us. When you see the United States, that's not us. When you see United States of America, USA, that's not us. There's two. There's the United States of America, the names of all of the states in Congress together. That's who we are. They invented a business service company named the United States, located in Washington, District of Columbia, nowhere else. You can look it up in the Oregon Revised Statutes, and it says that. The United States is located in Washington, D.C. We are not part of it. That is foreign to us, as foreign to us as France. And I'm sorry, I'm rambling here. In any case, what we're trying to do is return to a constitutional Republican form of government, and I'm probably the only guy here that carries it with him. We have the one for the United States over here if you want it. And I carry Oregon's and the United States. That's the contract. And they're breaking it each and every day. Every time you turn around, the whole thing is unlawful. There is nobody currently in government on Oregon that is lawful. Not the sheriff, not the cops, not the mayor, not the city council, not the county commissioners, none of them. They all know what they're doing. They are practicing deceit against us, and we've got to stand up for it, and we've got to do our best to get away from it. We have a card from our court that we can provide you if you're not a United States citizen, and we will go to bat for you at your school. Just like we went to bat when Charlie and Cynthia and Mark went to Salem Eugene last week to fight for a man, a whistleblower. He needed help, and those three showed up. We're doing the job to the best of our ability. We fail all the time. Just get up and do it again, and we'll help you the best way we can. And I yield.
They do not want to let go of this. They do not intend on losing here. And we do not intend giving it back to them.
And then the bullets started flying, and then he jumps out of the car, and he's got both his hands up. And he got out of the car, and he had his hands in the air. He's like, just shoot me then. This is what you want, to shoot me. And they did. They shot him dead. With his hands in the air, and I saw it. I swear to God. He was just walking with his hands in the air. And they shot him. And they shot him dead, and then after he was down on the ground, they shot him 3 more times.